Ends Well Boxing.
You're welcome on in. Ireland's Boxing Weekly podcast on all things amateur, professional, domestic and international.
If you'd like to find a link for all the previous episodes on any platform, or if you'd just like to keep an eye on our social media, you'll find all of that and more in today's show notes. As our Australian compadres would say down yonder, "G'day, you're welcome on in, mate." Where's that coming from? Down under, mate. The main man himself, Bobby Main. Shout out to you, my friend, at the top of this show. Hope you're doing well. Mike Altamura as well. Little bit of interaction there on Bookface after Tim Zoo's latest win. Trust me, we'll get to that one in a few minutes. How are you doing? How are you keeping? Looking good since this day last week. You've been enjoying a little bit of sun. As always, it's a privilege and a pleasure to be in your ears for this episode. So if you like to listen when you're out for a walk, if you like to listen when you're sat with the sun coming in the front window into your face, or if you're like Big Gary and you're in the van on the way down the country at some stage, put the earphones in, turn them up. If you feel like getting involved or having something to say on anything that's coming up in it, and any of the other episodes, I keep saying this, jump on the social media, Instagram, anywhere along the line. I'm going to start growing the little bit of interaction here now, and I'm going to find some way of doing it. I'll persuade you, even if it means giving away some prizes, because we've got a few of those ones coming up too. If for some reason you've missed any of the previous ones or the recent ones or any of the older ones, whatever it is you're thinking, check the notes below, check the Linktree page. You've got everything there from the new YouTube page. Wait till you see this. The Rolls Royce of YouTube pages, just about ready. You'll check all the old episodes. You can get all the socials and everything else there. With the boxing world on a little bit of a sabbatical, I suppose, for want of a better word, with not a massive amount of happening other than this fella repeating himself over and over and over again.
Fucking this, and he's done that, and he's done that, and he's...
Two profiles. Shum. Or shum.
And more, and more, and more. Same thing. As funny as it is at times, just get a little bit tiresome when you start to see a pattern forming. We'll have a look at that in a few minutes and see what the pattern is, where it's going, if it's going anywhere. With that in mind, this episode's going to have a little bit of a mixed feel to it. There's going to be a football theme, we're going to have some MMA talk, and, of course, we're going to have the general Ends Well Boxing talk, which is a little bit of everything all rolled into one, so fear not. No such silence in the land down under. In fact, there was rumblings, there was noises, there was threats of all sorts of storms. Everything was going to kick off at one point, and in the end, nothing really kicked off. I'm talking, of course, about Tim Tszyu versus Michael Zerafa, which was slated to go about today.
The biggest fight in Australian boxing. I never pulled away from this fight.
You want to be on a card like this. You want to be getting paid the money that you get paid to fight Tim Tszyu. That's what he's missed out on.
100 years on from the very first £1 million gate at a boxing event.
In June of 1913, Carpentier won the European Heavyweight Championship, stopping the Britisher Bombardier Billy Wells in 4 rounds at Belgium. Fighting his first bout in America on October 12, 1920.
Ends Well Boxing is going to mark the occasion, the anniversary, and highlight the significance of a fight of that magnitude. Jack Dempsey, George Carpentier, 2nd of June in 1921, all the way over there in New Jersey. And if that heavyweight title showdown was 100 years ago, we've got one in a little under 3 weeks. Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder. We know all that. We know the what, where, when, the who. What we don't know is, where can we watch it? Who's broadcasting it? The original plan this week was one episode. That switched, changed. Now we've got 2 episodes, 2 amazing guests. This particular one features one of the very top coaches in the sporting world.
You know, you have the ability to create torque with limb lengths and different ophthalmology.
And I don't just mean combat sport, I don't just mean boxing, I don't just mean MMA, NFL, across the spectrum. Phil Daru has worked with Dustin Poirier for the last number of years. He's worked with fighters like Colby Covington, he's worked with Amanda Nunes, he's worked with Joanna Jacek, he's working with Sully Barrera, Maureen Shea. The list goes on and on. But his focus this weekend, of course, UFC 264 Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier, the rubber match.
From a small town where everybody knows who he is. And again, essentially, you know, Conor is in Ireland what he is in Louisiana.
He's an expert in strength and conditioning. He's an expert in nutrition. He's an entrepreneur. He's a man who is constantly searching to expand his education, his knowledge, his mindset, so that he can educate and improve his fighters in turn. For me, this time around, it was a case of just try to steer the conversation and let the man speak. And for everybody and anybody that has a genuine interest in conditioning, in training, or the scientific side of the sports business, you might want to scribble a few notes because this man will absolutely blow your mind.
I'm not going to go 120%, and it's not worth it.
And of course, my other guest, which will follow an episode hot on the heels of this one with all the updated news and information of what's going on, because there's even more breaking news coming out of the boxing world over the last couple of hours. 11-time Irish national champion, European gold medalist, and recently agreed personal terms and signed a contract to turn professional with Queensberry Promotions and Frank Warren. His name is Will O'Haydon, and as I said, he will be following hot on the heels of this episode Friday morning, which of course means you're getting 2 episodes in the 1 week. Now, who else is doing that for you? And on a more solemn and sad note, spare a thought and a prayer, if that's what you're into, for Emma Joyce, who is the daughter of two-weight, 2-time Olympian from the Sunnyside Club in Cork, Kieran Joyce. And also for Sonia Barrett, who is the mum of Zelfa Brown Flash Barrett, and Pat Barrett, of course, who is the main man when it comes to Black Flash Promotions and all the fighters under that umbrella. So genuinely sorry to hear Sonia passed away suddenly last week, which I think has resulted in Zelfa's rematch with Kiko Martinez being put back. But please spare your thoughts, spare your prayers, and keep the family and the loved ones in your thoughts. I felt awful this morning when I heard about it, because I look back over my messages and I was chatting and organising with Pat, or trying to, last week to see if I could get a chat with him ahead of his fight card that's coming up in Manchester, and I never had any inkling. I hadn't got a clue. It's episode number 174. Boxing, a little bit of a holiday phase, a kind of a transition phase, we'll say, for some of the companies and promoters and everything else. It's holidays for most people around the country. Kids are all off, enjoying some of that sunshine, enjoying some of the weather. A little bit dodgy the last couple of days. But look, nothing really to complain about when you think of where we were this time last year. In the boxing news that is starting to leak out, that's reliable and that you can kind of trust. Mike Coppinger has been breaking news again and breaking balls on Eddie Hearn. It's his story this time is about Josh Warrington, of course, the rematch with Mauricio Lara, which is all but done for September 4th, and Coppinger has it that it is done. And it's at Headingley. And he also announces that Katie Taylor will be the co-main on that card. I must get in touch with Sean, messaging Josh earlier on in the week, having a little bit of a laugh and a little bit of a dig. He's in good spirits. He seems to be back where he needs to be now, ahead of a long, gruelling camp. And I have no doubt, he will correct the right wrong in that one. And he'll go on then, hopefully before the end of the year, for Can or Can't Zoo. As we wait on word on what or where this Fury Wilder fight is, we also wait on word of Usyk and Josh AJ. It's very peculiar. And as I said, Mr. Hearn would lead you to believe that it's all but done, it's all but signed, it's this, it's that. But it's not signed. It's not signed. It might be pre-agreed, but so was AJ Fury. I'm not 100% sure what to make of it, to be honest with you. I do recall, not that long ago, maybe a couple of years ago, I do remember Rob McCracken very clearly saying that there were 3 heavyweights that they don't want anything to do with. Ortiz was one, Wilder was one, and Usyk was the other. And there's a lot of talk about Usyk being too small, about Usyk being for heavyweight. I think people are going to be shocked when they see Usyk and AJ up close. I think they're going to be genuinely shocked. And just remember this episode, and remember I said that. He's not a small man. He's not a small man. There's about 6 inches of a difference. And no, don't be disgusting. I'm not talking about that either. Just watch and see. I think you're going to be shocked, and I think it's going to be a very, very dangerous, difficult fight. And I genuinely think Usyk has all the tools to trouble and beat AJ, but we'll see as that comes around, if it comes around, and we can do a little bit of digging into it then. No waiting around for Team Ireland. They're on the move. They flew out to Tokyo I think it was there a week ago. They're landed. They're getting acclimatised, they're training away. Little over 2 weeks to go till the greatest show on earth kicks off, and we will have episodes here looking at all of the athletes, looking at past Olympians, present Olympians, future Olympians, and then some. Never too sure what to make of Eddie Hearn, what to listen to, what not to listen to. He is without doubt a great salesman. He really did revolutionise, freshen up the boxing world, the scene of promotion and everything else when he came in the first place. What we're seeing over the last while was, I suppose, he reached the inside and was at that stage then of keeping everybody else out and keeping it as a closed shop. His interviews with Coog, hey Cougs, were sometimes brilliant, sometimes entertaining, and sometimes just a little bit cheesy and a little bit. I can't do anything but cringe when I see him in his Dolce & Gabbana or whatever it is, dressing gowns. I think it just, no, it's just not. It's not even. It's neither funny nor applicable nor needed. I think it's just trying too hard to be something he's not, to try and entertain and please Canelo. I think he's like a little dancing chimp at times, and it's cringy to hear him celebrate the Mexican shows. Not cringy, I suppose. Look, of course he's going to celebrate a run of shows in Mexico where Mexican boxers are just incredibly talented, incredibly durable, incredibly tough and willing to go to the well, where most UK and European and Western world fighters will not do. It's a way of life in Mexico, and it's often for their life at times. They'll fight. So the fact that he's now in bed with Canelo, with the Reynosos and their unearthing Mexican talent, it's a massive, massive Hispanic audience in Mexico and South America, and I can get all that. That's not lost to me. It's not lost on me that the biggest upsets over the last 12 months in boxing over this side of the earth were, in fact, inflicted by Mexican fighters. Now, is that a coincidence? Is that a coincidence? I stopped short of asking an episode when it happened, particularly when the Josh Warrington one happened. I was very, very suspicious, and I still am. Don't know what's behind it, I don't know how, but the fact that almost all of them featured on that card, which has deemed to be a success in Mexico and groundbreaking. What really was striking, firstly, I guessed that the interview was with Rob Tebbett, that it was on Boxing Social. No sign of Coogan, no sign of IFL. It was done remotely over Zoom, which is, look, it's the case these days with him in Mexico and Rob over on that side of the world. But what else did I hear? I can't help think that the big players in US boxing are circling the wagons. They're keeping him on the outside, right out in the periphery, and refusing to make or take fights with anything to do with Eddie or DAZN. The simple fact is DAZN need a pay-per-view star, and they don't have one, because Canelo is not aligned with DAZN. AJ, what's going to happen with AJ? Where is he going to go? Is he going to move to DAZN? Is he going to stay with Sky? Caleb Plant is rumoured to be the next opponent for Canelo. He is the one that holds the last of the super middleweight titles. And he's not going to take any shit from Canelo. He's already decided he knows his worth. He knows what he wants. And if he gets it, well, then they can negotiate the fight. His manager is Al Heyman. Remember what I was saying about circling the wagons? If they decide they don't want or need or feel like entertaining Eddie Hearn or anybody else, they will not do it. Al Heyman will not bow or bend for anybody. It's a little bit peculiar when he says about Canelo being a fluid sort of a fighter where he doesn't have himself tied or restrained by any companies. Very strange that he says he's no qualms at him going across and fighting on Fox or ESPN and come back then and fighting DAZN. I can't get my head around that, to be honest with you, because it's not that long ago that Eddie literally terminated a friendship and a relationship and a business relationship with Kell Brook, who you may remember was one of the first 3 fighters that Eddie Hearn ever signed when he got into Matchroom and started to cut his teeth. Now, I do get as well, it's a little bit of a different scenario because Brook opted to cut Hearn out and look to negotiate and do all the dealings himself with his dad. Silly move in the end, as he went to battle with what many considered a pound-for-pound best in the world without his coach, without his promoter, without his manager and anyone else behind him. What else tweaked my spidey senses? Well, another apparent contradiction. Eddie says that he's actively looking for an opponent for Dillian White. He's trying to get him busy, he wants to get him out in the US preferably. It doesn't really add up because when you look around the boxing scene, heavyweights like Tony Yoka, Ortiz, Michael Hunter, and even his Matchroom stablemate, Filip Hrgovic. All of those looking for fights. They haven't fought in a while. They need to get busy. Eddie tries to use the IBF as a persuasive factor. The fact that the winner gets a mandatory challenge against AJ. Now, again, it's not that long ago where they're openly considering binning a belt or getting rid of a belt or generally whatever it takes to benefit and make the best deals for AJ in the long term. So as I go about my business yesterday with the little earphone in listening, I'm shouting at this point of the interview, what about Hrgovic and White? Get that one on. Get that one done. Why not? It makes sense. Very easy. He represents both. He promotes both. Seems to be very straightforward. But there's another question again. What's Dillian going to do? Is he going to stay at Sky? He has a stable of fighters of his own that he likes to manage. He likes to mentor. Is he going to throw away the pay-per-view fights where he's guaranteed 2 or 3 million per fight to face an opponent for the zone or for whoever it is they feel like bringing him to the US for? Well, the opponent that's been mentioned right now is for a late August showdown with Dillian is a guy by the name of Jermaine Franklin. He's, on the face of it, his record looks respectable. He's 20-0, but he's not boxing since 2019. He's not long over a bad dose of COVID. And he is literally, when you look through the record and you do a little bit of groundwork and a little bit of scratching, it's a padded record. He's not ranked by any of the governing bodies inside the top 15. And it's literally just a knockover fight for Dillian to introduce him to the US audience. Now, to me, at this stage, after all the amazing fights that Dillian has been in and on all the highs and lows and coming back from and beating Povetkin, he doesn't need this. He needs a fight. He needs to keep building the momentum. Hughie Fury is in the UK. He's not got much going on at the moment. Why not get a fight for him somewhere along I genuinely don't understand what Eddie's plan or lack of plan is when it comes to particular fighters who he claims repeatedly that he cares about, that they're his family. And fellas like Luke Campbell, Callum Smith, Liam Smith, Dillian, as we say, Billy Joe Saunders, John Ryder. John Ryder's been with him for I don't know how long. And I'd be a fool to say that the move to the zone was a bad one, or it was a mistake, or it was even a risk. But if Eddie has rubbed up the boxing fraternity in the States, which he has, don't forget when he went to America first, he tried to belittle and make fun of Shelley Finkel. Remember? Shirley Winkle and all of that. Who had the last laugh? And only recently. It was Shelley Finkel who was basically involved with the negotiating and all the terms of what led to Fury Wilder 3. So if it is a lockout, if he is on the outside with a whole pile of money and nobody wants to take it off him, what's going to happen? He's never been in a situation before where he's had to negotiate such a scenario. He's always been the big fish in the small pond. And right now he's in an ocean with sharks. I'm not saying he's not going to be able, I'm not saying he's not going to survive, I'm not saying he's not going to find a way. I'm just curious, because in the meantime, while all that has to be figured out and negotiated and trashed out, there's fighters sitting on the sidelines, and fighters don't need to be sitting around. One weight division where there's no sitting around going on is the light heavyweight division, particularly on the domestic front in the UK. Incredible names are starting to come to the fore right now in a division where you could very well see an exciting domestic tournament. The emergence of the likes of Spider Richards, the maturing of Hosea Burton and experience and everything else. We've also got Lyndon Arthur, Anthony Yard and all that goes with that. For me, Callum Johnson tops that pile. He beats any of them on any night. But he's a little bit older than the rest of them. There is, of course, as well, the much lauded and the much hyped Josh Boazzi. Now, for me, this fella's got a lot to do. He's got to start making some waves because he's been minded, he's been cajoled, he's been well looked after, and it's time now to step out, step up, and start smashing. There are some brilliant fights to be made in this division, and I have no doubt that it'll kick off this weekend on the Frank Warren show. Lyndon Arthur faces David Farrell. Anthony Yard is due to fight on this card as well. I'm not too sure who he's facing. His opponent, I believe, got injured. It's at the Albert Hall. It'll be interesting. It's always a good atmosphere there as well. In a very classy touch, Frank Warren has opted to pass the tickets for the frontline workers, for the Chelsea pensioners, and for all of those who helped out when COVID and when lockdown was at its very worst. It's an incredible gesture. Doesn't have to do it. Don't forget, Eddie talked about it for a long time. We've yet to see any of that happen. But he's not shy with his £750 tickets. As 2021 plays out, unfolds, unfurls, big fights get bigger, the purses and the monies get obscenely bigger. Mind-bending amounts of money filter out from ultimately where two fellas just want to duke it out in the centre of the ring. Preposterous figures that a very small, minute percent of sportsmen or women ever get to see in a lifetime, let alone a career. And even in this era of endless resources, far too many boxers leave the game with little more than they came in with, and a whole lot less of their health. It's almost ironic, or worse, that in a time, an era, when we know so much scientifically about fighting and about health, about how to make it safer, how to make it better, coinciding with so much resources, so much money available in the game, that again, it still only applies to such a small few. So taking all that into consideration, it makes it even more fascinating that way back in 1921, Jack Dempsey, George Carpentier could command and generate such an exorbitant revenue. 100 years ago this week, that truly historic landmark event, this fight, took place in a purpose-built stadium out in New Jersey. Very first £1 million revenue, very first live broadcast on radio. And how fitting it is that something like this should be the one to pave the way for all of these massive fights that have come since.
Violent gentlemen.
The first $1 million gate in boxing history. At Boyle's 30 Acres, Jersey City, New Jersey, July 2nd, 1921. Scheduled for 15 rounds for the heavyweight championship of the world. Champion Jack Dempsey, challenger George Carpentier. Ripping right hands by Carpentier, but Dempsey is not slowed. Another ripping right hand, grazing Dempsey's chin. Dempsey keeps coming on. Carpentier trying to hold Dempsey. And finally they're separated. Carpentier looks weak-kneed now. Again almost losing his feet as he threw that right-hand punch. Dempsey advancing. Carpentier is in trouble. Dempsey still belting away to the stomach. And down goes Carpentier. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. He's up just in time. And Dempsey goes after him, and down he is again. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He's trying to get up. 8, 9, 10, and out. And Jack Dempsey remains heavyweight champion of the world.
Violent gentlemen.
Fight Associated, Belfast-based brand. Click the shop link in today's show notes and check out their latest ranges, which include Lewis Crocker, Paul Hyland Jr., Owen O'Neill, and wait till you hear what's coming next. Whether you're a fighter or a fan, it has to be quality, style, value.
Violent gentlemen.
Act accordingly. So, to give you the lead up to today's guest, your guest, the internationally renowned, world-renowned coach Phil LaRue. You may remember a few episodes back, we welcomed Irish-Mexican former two-weight world champion Maureen Shea on and had a fascinating conversation with her about her career, about her life, and about all the things that kind of intertwined the concentric circles. And one of those happened that she happened to mention, of course, was that she was now working under the guise of Coach Phil LaRue. She also worked full-time as his almost his personal assistant, if you want, for want of a better word. She runs the gym, she runs his schedule, she organises things like that. So a little light bulb moment went off there, and I thought maybe, yeah, down the line. And I thought about it, and I just said, you know what, I sent a message earlier in the week. I thought, Conor's fighting Sunday week, I thought. I'll see if maybe the coach will have time, half expecting him not to have time this week and to say, look, we'll kick it out till later on. And I thought I'd have time to prepare then. So imagine my surprise when Maureen replies, yeah, sure, when do you want, what time? I thought, look, as I always say to guests, I'm more than willing, more than conscious, and more than aware of the demands on these guys' time. So as always, I'll prepare and I'll make sure I'm ready to fit in whatever time suits. Within an hour, came back, how about Wednesday? Suit you at such and such a time, our time. Imagine my surprise then when I look at the calendar and I double check and I realise Conor's fighting this Sunday, and she meant actually the next day. So to say the least, there was a bit of panic, and the panic, anxiety, worry, and above all else, I really, really wanted to make the most of an opportunity to speak with somebody who is at the pinnacle. He's at the top. Make no mistake about it. All you got to do is Google and you will see. So I can unashamedly and unreservedly admit that I was more nervous for this interview than last time I guessed that I was that concerned was when we spoke here, of course, to Jerry Cooney, and the long-term listeners will remember that. And in similar fashion, I needn't have been worried. A lot of preparation done, a couple of late nights, a lot of notes, and I think what's come out of it, you're going to hear somebody who is you can see why he's at the top of his game. Despite all the challenges, despite the demands, family life, business life, professional life, you've got a guy who is, he's just fascinating. And what makes him fascinating is his ability to take all that science, all that professional jargon, for want of a better word, translate it, understand it intrinsically, and then reiterate it in a language that fellas like me, you, and any other fighter needs to know in a short space of time so they can absorb it, put it to work. He'll explain the ability of small men to create power. He explains the chin. He explains... Why am I trying to summarise? He's going to do it all here right now. Gotta say a big heads up, a big props, a big thank you very, very, very much to Maureen Shea for organising this for me. You're the best, Maureen. Thanks a million.
The fight's in about 2 weeks also, and we got a guy that's fighting on Friday, Sullivan Barrera. So, I mean, there's multiple things going on all the time, especially when you're coaching and running gyms and businesses and things of that nature. But yeah, we're looking forward.
It's a good job you have the bionic lady beside you as well every step of the way. She's a special woman in more ways than one. And
listen, she's sitting right next to me, and she heard every word. So you just made her ego bigger. Thank you for that.
Be straight with you as well, my podcast and most of what I do is about boxing. I do love, as a casual fan of MMA, a lot of it went back early days to Ken Shamrock and stuff when I would have watched a lot of that, but Conor probably brought a new lease of life here, and there's a lot of people in Ireland who are Conor fans, not so much MMA fans. My fanboy can be parked for a while. It doesn't excuse a fella from being out of a line or whatever else, you know, and I think the way Conor has behaved in defeat, we've probably seen a little bit more true to the character than what we've seen him in the build-up to these things.
Yeah, we've seen it all, man. You know, and he's just another fighter. At the end of the day, he has a lot of eyes on him, so that's going to play a big role in how he acts and how he reacts. He knows exactly who he is when it comes down to it, and he knows his abilities and his ability to, you know, dictate a fight based upon what he says throughout the entire lead up. So, I mean, he has to do that in some ways because that's the facade that he's built up. And that's how he wins fights in a lot of ways too as well, you know. So, I mean, we're definitely, we know exactly what we're getting when we get a Conor McGregor fight. It's not a big deal at this point. And Dustin, and for me, watching him and talking with him, I've been with him for 11 camps so far. And this one, I could say that he has been the most calm and just tranquil as far as just not really, you know, feeding into the bull crap and making sure that he stays aligned with his goals and what he's focusing on and what his game plan is, as opposed to all the tactics and all the, you know, back and forth on Twitter. So we'll see what happens, though.
I think the point that you make about a lot of what happens in the lead up, we saw it with Eddie Alvarez, we saw it with Aldo, we saw it with a lot of people. I think I remember when the original fight with Aldo was made, I had no qualms from what I was able to learn and see that Conor was in big trouble. He was in over his head if it had gone ahead when it was planned. There was a long layoff, there was a lot of stuff went on in between, and when it did go ahead, what had happened outside transferred. From listening and watching Dustin as well, first of all, Dustin got a massive amount of love and respect from the Irish people here after the fight, because he's just a stand-up fella. He's just there's something beautiful about a fella who doesn't feel the need to perform or be anything different. And I'm not just saying that because you're here. Do you think a big part of the change is being able to not just not have to deal with it, but almost be able to do it unknown to himself, not even recognise what Conor is saying and doing?
Yeah, I mean, he's been in the game for a long time. I think he's learned a lot from the first time that they fought. He said it before in interviews, but you know, he's very young. Then he had a lot to prove. He had a big chip on his shoulder. He comes from a small town where everybody knows who he is. And again, essentially, you know, Conor is in Ireland what he is in Louisiana, especially in Lafayette. So, you know, he has a lot of people after him to, you know, to showcase what he has and to put their city or, you know, even state on the map. So there was a lot there, but now he fights for his family. He fights for a higher purpose. as opposed to just showing who he is. And I think everybody knows who he is at this point. And so he doesn't have a whole lot to prove, but he just wants to be able to have fun in there, do what he loves, and make some money doing it, to help feed his family. And when you have that, it's a lot less stress on your point that we're trying to make here is at the end of the day, it's going to be a fight between two men, and whoever has put in the work and put in diligent work and follows the game plan and perfects what they've been working on. And that's going to get into people's heads at some points. But with Dustin, again, like I said, he's kind of grown out of that. So we'll see, how it plays out when the cage door closes.
You mentioned Sully Barrera there as well, another hugely impressive, hugely respectable character in the boxing world. He's been in at that super middle with many lads. He carries a very special sense of pride about him. When I see him come to the ring, I see him walk, he has that it's almost regal approach to him. A huge pressure as well, carrying a hugely proud nation. Special character, isn't he?
He really is, man. He comes in and bless his heart, man. He's older, he's up there in age, but he works with the guys that are way younger than him, and he puts in more work sometimes. And, he can still be dominant at the age that he has. And, he's been fighting since probably he was 6 years old. So there's a lot of wear and tear there, but the pride that he has in it, not only in his country, but for his family, for his team. Just an all around nice guy, honestly. You wouldn't even think he's a fighter. But the way he carries himself, again, like you said, just a huge amount of pride, and a lot of times he's just fun to be around, you know what I mean? So it's definitely when I first got him, this was for the Jesse Hart fight, and he was working with me, and he doesn't speak a whole lot of English, but he does his thing. Like we definitely converse, and the fun thing about him is that he's always willing to learn. And you're looking at a veteran. Being his coach allows me to kind of do what I need to do, and there's no micromanaging or anything of that sort. So I get full autonomy on what I need to do, and he, takes into it. And again, like I said, he takes pride in what he does on a daily basis, especially when it comes down to his training.
People that might not be familiar with Coach Phil LaRue, I realised yesterday exactly how extensive the amount of learning. You seem to be, if you don't mind me saying, a fella that's been learning at a rate of knots, way before any of us normal fellas would have been. Is that something that you think stands to you as you go on? The early teens had a very set mindset. You were focused on your football career and everything else. Is that standing to you as you go ahead? Is it something that you had to work at, or do you feel your coping mechanisms were always good?
No, I definitely had to work on it. In the beginning, especially with the amount of head trauma, basically, that I've been able to attain for years and years playing American football and then, MMA. And a lot of times you would have short-term memory loss, and I would have to learn and relearn things over and over again. And even still to this day, I have a huge whiteboard sitting in front of my office. I have a huge whiteboard in my home, and I like to see things in grand scale. So instead of I'll have notebooks, and obviously I have stuff on my laptop, but I need to see things in big, bold letters. And that usually helps me kind of really learn and have it stick. The one thing that I would say is that I've been in constant pursuit of new information since the time I was 13, 14 years old, because of the fact that I'm very passionate about growth and the potential to be great. So with that, I'm not only learning things from a physical performance side, but also from a psychological perspective, and whatever's going to help me be a better athlete, be a better coach, be a better person. I'm going to go ahead and take into that, and whatever the aspects of my learning is, I'm going to make sure that I have a strategic approach to everything, whether it be me having to write down notes upon notes. Even when I'm reading books, I'm leaving notes for myself. I'm going back to the particular scriptures of what I'm reading, and I'm re-emphasizing on exactly what that actually means. And I'm dissecting every paragraph, every word, because I need to know. I need not to just know it. I need to have deep knowledge of it. And that way I can go ahead and reiterate that and put it over to people that are trying to learn from me. So it's more of if you look at it from an archetype standpoint, I'm living in a magician's archetype in a lot of ways, trying to increase my wisdom and have that intuition to learn and to grow and to help other people understand the process. What does it take to be great? And so, yeah, that's primarily an everyday thing, because if you come into my office, you'll see a whole bunch of words and different definitions and everything else that I have written down, because I need to constantly be learning and understanding what that actually means.
It's both frightening and fascinating at the same time. And do you feel that there's different periods of where you feel that the information just won't go in? Can it improve over time, or is it just there now? It's something you have those mechanisms ready?
It's definitely gotten better. I would say I was trying to go back to get my PhD, and it was really bad. I had to retire. I was probably 26 years. My fight, I was like 25, 26 years old, and things weren't clicking. I was going back. I was going taking classes. And, I wasn't picking up things the way I usually do. And so for that, I went to a neurologist, and they ran some tests and basically said that I had some beta amyloid plaques sitting inside my neurons or in between. And it was eating away at some of the neurons, which obviously that's very important to have, right? From a cognition standpoint, right? To learn and to grasp the knowledge. So, that scared me a little bit. And then I basically stopped fighting right then and there. It took me about 2 weeks to really come to the conclusion, but for the most part, I was like, it's probably best if I take a break and do the things that I need to do from a coaching standpoint and from a business standpoint. So I pivoted a little bit there, and then I started taking a lot of omega-3s, some nootropics. Still to this day, I'll take a fair dose of it, but now it's a lot better. Not saying that it's 100%. But again, it's also has to do with focus. It also has to do with, how much you're interested in a certain subject. If I'm very interested in a subject, I'll learn it very quickly because my attention, my focus is always there. And that's how I'll know if I really want to go and pursue a certain subject, right? If it's something that I really, really take to, I'm not going to waste time on things that don't interest me anymore. I'm at that point right now where I'm past that warrior stage, and I'm looking more towards helping other individuals. Still have my athletes, but there's other things that I'm interested in, and with that, that leads to me having new growth because I'm able to learn more efficiently. Because again, I like the subject and I'm interested in it. So.
That was one of the conversations I had with Maureen. At this point in life, you start to choose, you go through a phase of having an opinion and wanting to not force your opinion, but strengthen your opinion and reinforce it all the time. And I think as you get a little bit wiser and a little bit older, you're more choosy at what you have an opinion on, but it doesn't make the fire any less. It just makes it more intense when you need it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm able to put my all into it, and if I'm not going to do that, if I'm not going to go 120%, then it's not worth it, in my opinion. So I have to love it. I have to be driven to do what I need to do.
Would you say as well, from your experience of working with the people on Civvy Street, as we say, or from the high achieving, the very top end athletes, some fighters, some sportsmen can take things up without they don't need it explained. They just have that natural ability. Yeah. Others you need to over and over again, and they might be suffering, I guess, with some of the symptoms you have. Where would you find, or is it a cross mix between everybody?
No, I do believe it also has to do with their personality type too as well. So I break down that depending upon there's a lot of things. There's their temperaments, there's their neurotransmitter dominance, and I can go into detail on that. But primarily when you're looking at like an A-type individual, somebody who's highly dopamine dominant, they are focused primarily on the task, have that little emotion. So you don't really have to necessarily break down all the nuanced details of everything. They just want to get after it. Mm-hmm. And so for that, you give them one or two cues so that allows them to do the movement efficiently. And then you just let them have a go at it, with more of like an acetylcholine dominant type of individual. Those are the guys that, are more of analytical. So they want to learn, exactly doing and we're doing it and how it's gonna correlate over to the fight. So reframing is a big key contributor to that. Having the ability to take a particular exercise and tell them why this is gonna be beneficial for them inside the fight, and again that's gonna be consistent throughout the entire time of the workout, and that consistent throughout the entire time of the camp. So really depends on their personality. But as far as breaking on things and having to, reframe and things, a lot of times, if you have a guy that's been doing something or a girl that's been doing something over and over again and maybe the wrong way, it's very hard to get them out of that state of mind, right? So it's usually the veterans that you have to reiterate their focus and try to have them learn new things. You know, they say you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but, you know, I find that for one, at least they're more apt to learning because they know they need something different. The younger guys that have no real understanding of strength and conditioning, that can be an issue, you know, because again, they feel like they know it all. Nobody needs to tell them anything. And two, you know, they really don't have the focus at that particular time. You know, a lot of these guys are really young and hungry and they just want to get after it. So you got to kind of bring them back down and try to slow them down a little bit more so that they can learn and so that they can have that efficient understanding and have that unconscious competence per se built in. So when you get them under a bar, you get them under some weight, you know, they know how to move. And not saying that we're trying to make them into weightlifters, but they need to be able to move efficiently under load so that can correlate over into the fight game. Because if not, then we're putting them at risk of injury. So it's really just a game of understanding personalities. And then from there, giving them possible cues so that you don't have to talk so much. You want to eliminate the conversation as much as possible and kind of let them figure it out. But again, as a coach, you have to guide them through that particular exercise or whatever they're doing in order for them to get more efficient and more unconsciously.
Every fighter is different, as you will know, but a lot of boxers right now are coming out with a mindset that they want to go pro, that the amateur game, the Olympic dream, all that kind of stuff. And it's not just because of COVID. It's they're looking at the bright lights. They're seeing, everybody sees a Floyd Mayweather. They don't see the graph that it takes to get there, and they don't realize the drop off to get there. Is that the same in America? Is the amateur game suffering in that rush to get after it, as you say?
Yeah, I see that in all sports, honestly. Yeah. Even look at even basketball and baseball too as well. These kids want to go right to the pros because that's where they're making their money. A lot of these kids don't have money. They grow up poor. I've grown up in those situations, so I understand that process. And if I have an opportunity to get my family out of a position to use my skills, then I'm going to do that. It's cool to be an Olympian, and I understand that. And I know, and we have Olympians here, you know, that train with us here, but they're dirt poor. You know, at the end of the day, they barely can pay their dues on the training. So, I mean, it's a kind of a touchy subject for me because I see a lot of these kids, they have huge potential. Do I want to keep them back, hold them back to their ultimate goal? Because at the end of the day, that's where they need to be. There's also a process. If they can't go through that process, if they rush that process, they may falter. So it all depends on their maturity. It all depends on if their readiness in general. So if they're ready to go, why hold back when they can change the lives of not only themselves, but the people that they love the most?
Even more special when you look at what the likes of Sullivan Barrera is doing, what the likes of Muhammad Ali did, people like that who came from literally nothing, and in a strange sort of a way it almost afforded them time in the amateurs to learn it so well, to learn it so intricately. The gap between who they have and don't have is getting wider, isn't it?
Oh yeah, definitely.
There's a thought in boxing, S&C at times, some people are for it, all for it, other people are against it. They believe there should be more boxing movement, boxing training. Can you say what your thoughts on it, or what you've experienced, and people, does it take long to win people over? Where are the areas that you see benefits a boxer most from a serious S&C program?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys that are doing really well, putting together scientific protocols based upon individual differences and putting it together and letting it go into a sports performance realm. And a lot of the times, you're going to get pushback from what we call quote unquote old school coaches. But the reason why is because those old school coaches never had the opportunity to get with a qualified professional that knows how to put things together and correlate that over into the ring. Whereas now you're getting guys that are smart, but also understand the sport. So with that, they can use particular general movement patterns that are going to strengthen up muscles and the joints that cross it, right, to allow them to be successful inside the ring. Now, we're not just talking about, power and speed and strength. Now, those are obviously byproducts from a physical standpoint, but you're also talking about psychologically, you can enhance a person's performance because they feel stronger. They feel more in shape. They feel fit, and those numbers can be dated because it's very quantifiable. When I have a number that goes up each and every week, well, I obviously know that I'm getting stronger because I'm lifting more weight than I did last week. So for that, when the numbers go up, your overall confidence goes up. And if you can put that into an understanding of an athlete and a coach too as well, to showcase, okay, I have higher force production here in this particular movement, but I'm using the muscles that do the same thing when I throw a punch or when I'm evading a shot, or I'm having better conditioning overall. Let's say, for instance, an overall aerobic capacity. when I have a better ability to take in oxygen and utilize it, well, then I'll be able to go faster, go harder, go longer because I have more energy output. And I'm not expelling as much because I'm more efficient with my breathing and I'm more efficient with my movement. So there's less effort from a muscular standpoint, which allows me to do more things from a skill set perspective. So now, as I'm enhancing my qualities as an athlete, right, I'm enhancing the qualities from a physical preparation standpoint, it's going to correlate over into my boxing skill because now I have more tools to utilize my skill set. So I have stronger legs. I have stronger core muscles. I have a stronger oxygen tank. And what that does is that just helps initiate more responses inside the ring. So if I can build the tank, I'll be able to utilize the car and drive it way more efficiently.
So it takes you about, I would say, 3 minutes to convince somebody. Two fighters I wanted to mention to you, two very different style fighters, boxers. Are you familiar with Inoue, the Japanese? Very, very small, but he has what people would say the death touch. He touches a fella and he seems to put him asleep all the time. And then we have the alpha male, the dominant heavyweight, who has that same gift, Deontay Wilder. Two different styles, but can you explain, is that ability, that power, that some people will say they're born with it? Is there an explanation or is every fighter different?
Every fighter is different. You know, you have the ability to create torque with limb lengths and different ophthalmology where they're able to produce force from a given position. You know, a guy like Wilder, he can hit you with anything and put you to sleep. I think that has to do with a lot of mass times acceleration. When you're looking at power from just from a physics standpoint, right? You have force and then you have velocity. Force times velocity equals power. So if he can generate a huge amount of force behind mass that he already has, again, mass times acceleration, and with that, he's able to have a little bit of velocity behind it, obviously be fast, he's going to produce a large amount of power. And if he puts it anywhere on a particular body, right, as you've seen, he'll be able to shut the lights off quick. Now, with the lighter guys, they're generally relying on precision, timing, and they're also relying on their speed. So again, velocity, that's the other side of that force velocity continuum, right? So as far as power goes, you need to have speed. And if he has a huge amount of speed and he puts it in the right places, then he can knock somebody out too as well. So it really just depends on how you actually go about throwing your punches. And from there, it's what's built in from a genetic standpoint and also from your training. And a lot of times, just again, like that's true. A lot of people are gifted with the ability to just shut lights off on anybody, but there's also things that you can improve upon, right? So to say that Deontay Wilder can never get any stronger, can never get any powerful that's very bad to say. Like that's not true at all, right? So at the end of the day, can both of those fighters get better? Yes. Were they gifted? Possibly, you know? So, but yeah, there's two sides of the coin. I would say that you definitely need some genetic help for you to be able to utilize the strengths that you've been able to give or be able to work with. But there's always ways to be able to create more power. When people say you can't teach power, you can't create more power, it doesn't make any sense, because if you can get a guy to run faster and jump higher, you can get a guy to punch harder.
That's amazing. And that was actually one of the points I had just left to ask you as well about power, because that old misnomer, it can't be taught, it can't be trained, it can't be. So that's clear, that one. And the last one I'll say to you, because I don't want to keep too much of your time. A mutual friend of myself and Maureen, he's a legend, and I don't use that word often in Irish boxing circles. He's an Olympic silver medalist. He's a former WBC champion. He was one of the smallest fellas in the house. Wayne McCullough was his name. He's absolutely adamant that the chin, that his chin, and it was much renowned. He was in with Morales, he was in with Prince Nazim, he was in with all of them, and he was always adamant that it was a mental thing, that he trained his mind. He wasn't getting knocked out, he wasn't getting chinned. Is that, again, I know every fighter is different, and it can't be, it's fighter specific, I guess, but is there a lot of it comes down to training as well, and might he have been doing something that he was unaware of, or is it, again, differently for each fighter?
Genetically, that's another thing. You know, a lot of people can take shots. A lot of people can take punches, and then also if he's not getting hit on a constant basis, there's a huge issue with fighters getting in wars in the gym, you know, and not even make it to their prime because they're getting accumulation of head trauma. But I think that when it comes down to confidence, yeah, you can trick your mind into thinking that, you know, you're unbeatable, but there's going to come a time where you're going to get rocked. And it just depends on how you react towards that. I don't see that being a true definition of having a strong chin or whatever the case. I just think that he's ultimately confident in his approach. But yeah, I don't see it having a scientific reasoning behind him not getting knocked out. You know, anybody can touch anybody, and if your brain rattles against its skull, you're gonna go down. You know what I mean? So, can he strengthen up his jaw? Can he strengthen up his neck? Absolutely, he probably does, and that's probably why he's so confident. You know, and then on top of that, you know, genetically you can take a shot. So those two things really are what plays a big role in not getting knocked out, and also obviously having great defense, not getting hit. You know, as a sport is to hit and not get hit. It's a sweet science. It's not who can punch the hardest and who can take the most shots.
The last thing I'll say to you, Coach, is, and again, thank you very much for taking time. The weight cut, it's a hot topic with a lot of people. And I listened to Dustin on Joe Rogan a while ago. I listened to him twice. He blew my mind. The fact that he was cutting so much, I think he said 45 pounds, I think the first time he fought Conor, which was, you know, and I put this in context to people who might only be listening in a short while. People lose a pound in Weight Watchers and they'll go and celebrate for a night, and they'll have, it's not a mean achievement to lose, but these guys are doing it then in a compacted space time. What's your thoughts on weight cut? It's part of the job, isn't it? It doesn't get any easier either.
Yeah, it sucks. It's the worst part of the sport. Yeah, I had to cut to 155. I fought at 155, but I walked around at probably 180. So me and Dustin are the same size. You know, Dustin will probably walk around 180, 182. Right now, you know, it's down to the wire. Now he's at 55, so it's not as bad. But 45 was just monstrous cuts. You know, that was something that we're talking 20, 25 pounds within, you know, a couple of days, maybe even less. And so, you know, now it's a little bit better, but it's still not the greatest. And I think that because of such of those, and boxing is different, and we just talked about this before we got on the call, but like boxing has multiple weight classes, so there's not a huge cut for a lot of the boxers. With MMA guys, there's a big gap. So, you know, for him to go to 170, he would be undersized 170. He would probably be right there, but it's not as normal as he would be at 155. You know, he's kind of the normal size for those guys. You know, and that's an issue. But if you had a 165 pound division, then that would be perfect. You know, but you don't. But what I would say is that the weight cutting in general ultimately is going to bring down performance by some percentage. You know, depending on how much they cut, depending on how much they diet, depending on, you know, how much muscle mass they have, how much they flow throughout the night, and then also the rehydration protocols. Now, luckily, he has a guy that's been working with him forever. And also was one of my interns, Eric Pena, who's with him right now, that cooks for him, that has his meals ready and prepared. They're at the Airbnb, so they don't have to worry about the hotel or anything like that. They can cook the meals. And that's because he's at that level. But some of the guys, man, you're especially boxers and, you know, up and coming fighters, they don't have the means to do that. They don't even have the money to actually hire somebody like that. So they have to do it on their own. And that's an issue because they don't know what they're doing. You know, so a lot of times they'll crash diet, not, you know, probably not eating any carb, not taking in any sodium, and that's going to have a negative effect on everything. That's going to have a negative effect on glycogen storages. That's going to have a negative effect on hormonal balance, their ability to lose the water because they're holding on to it because they don't have enough sodium in their body. So that right there is it's a strategic approach to everything. If you don't have the science to back that up, it's going to be a hard pressed process, and ultimately your performance will definitely go down. So what we're seeing is like subpar athletes come fight night because they're cutting these, you know, massive amounts of weight and they don't know how to rehydrate properly. So when you're able to like bring that down, and with MMA, I don't think it's ever going to do that. I mean, you know, with boxing, it's better. That's why you kind of can see with boxers, you know, it's not like they're not sucked out a whole lot of times. You watch MMA fighters and some of these guys pass out on the scale. Yeah. You know, I seen a girl a couple of weeks ago pass out, you know, but that's like the dark side of the fight game, you know, and that's one thing that, you know, people don't really care. Like a lot of fighters, man, they're not worried about the fight. They're worried about the weight cut. Once they finish the weight cut, that's the first fight that they won. You know, now they gotta worry about fighting in a cage or a ring.
And is there a certain amount of time, coach? Is there a limited amount of time the body can crash that way? Does it get to a stage where that's it? It's not happening anymore? Or is it just a case of pushing it each time?
No. I mean, well, as far as each weight cut?
Yeah.
I mean, it depends on the person. If you're having bad weight cuts, you're limited. I would say, and I'm putting an arbitrary number on it, but I would say 5 harsh weight cuts will kill your career. You're looking at anything higher than that. If you're cutting, and then we're talking about massive cuts, we're talking 20, 30 pounds, maybe even more than that. Sometimes I've seen 35-pound cuts, which are crazy, but not uncommon. And if you do that, and you do it in the real hard part, and the real damage that's going to occur is if you do it multiple times throughout the year. So if you do it, like, okay, one hard cut throughout the year, and then maybe two or 3 years later, then you have another hard cut, you may be able to get away with it. But if you do multiple hard cuts throughout the year, now you're damaging a lot of things inside the body, right? So you really don't know exactly what's going on outside, but if you take some blood work done, you get some blood work done, and you check your blood markers, and you're also checking out your hormones, you're seeing your testosterone drop, you're looking at all these other things that are going wrong with you, your thyroid's messed up, your metabolism is shot, then it's going to be hard for you to even lose body fat now. So now you're carrying around like a spare tire, and you're training hard as shit, but you can't bring the weight down. That's because you messed up your metabolism, and your thyroid's all out of whack. I've seen guys have hyperthyroidism because of too many weight cuts too as well, and can't even gain weight. So now they're losing weight over, and guys will lose, and I had a guy that everybody probably knows, I'm not going to say his name, but everybody knows this individual. He fought for Bellator, and he was a light heavyweight, and there was a point where he couldn't get anywhere higher than 185, and obviously lightweight is a 205. So he would still fight at lightweight, but he wouldn't get past maybe 190, and he would have to force feed himself to get there because he had hyperthyroidism, because of the fact that he's been cutting weight for so many years. Not only as a professional fighter, but as a wrestler too as well.
Incredible. So now you've got people that you've got working with you as well, the likes of George Lockhart and those that have embraced it's a science. It's not a guessing game. It's right down to the last day, and it makes it. We won't say it makes it easy, because nobody wants to be hungry, but it certainly makes it a lot safer and a lot more comfortable at times.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is better when you have a professional there. George has definitely been a huge part of educating the fighters. Mike Dolce too as well. But these guys coming in that have that only do that is very good. You know what I'm saying? Because now it takes pressure off of individuals like myself, right? One, I don't want to do it. I hate doing it because I know how it is. Yeah. I know how it feels. And I definitely don't want to be around it, because of how bad it really is. But these guys have a strategic, scientific approach to it. They break it down mathematically, so that they know exactly what they need to take in, when they need to take it in. And the real thing, the real benefit of it is the refueling process, because no matter how much you cut, if you don't refuel properly, you're not going to be able to go out there and perform well. So that's where a lot of the math comes into play, where they're taking, how much glycogen they actually lost, replenishing that. Same thing with the liquids and the creatine and branched chain amino acids and everything else. So all these things come into play. Whatever you lost, we need to put that back in, and we also need to double that, because again, it has to carry over into the fight in 24 hours.
There's so many different levels and layers to and it was only yesterday again when I started to listen to some of your stuff and some in detail. There's so many layers you could talk all the very last point, transitioning. I hear a lot of the time when I speak to fighters, particularly fellas that maybe come across the science and the scientific side of sport midway or late in their career, they consider that as a transition into their true pro ranks.
As far as transitioning from
being a pro athlete, embracing all that goes with being, and all the modern sciences and technologies that go into being an elite athlete today, from being a young amateur athlete, and then basically at the end of the career you see a fella who's literally out and he has to gotta wind himself down, and not a nice one for some either.
Yeah, that's a good question. When they're ready to make that leap into the elite realm, a lot of things become nuanced details, and with an amateur or like a beginner pro, You know, you can kind of get away with a lot of different things. You know, you can get away with less sleep. You can get away with not having a strategic on point diet. But when you get to them higher rankings, everything counts. Every little detail, every calorie, every training session, every minute upon that training session, every sleep, every, hour of sleep costs, those things really come into play. And so with that, they have to be able to be more strategic on their approaches, have an understanding of their entire schedule, and having an organized plan of action, because you can't really wing it at that point. You got to know exactly what you're doing, when you're doing it, and how you're doing it. And because everything's going to compound over time. When they make the transition out, we've had several, and I'm sitting next to a young lady right now that has going through that transition from being an elite pro to now retiring and going and pivoting onto a new career. I had to do it too, and I had to do it in a cut short. But at the end of the day, this is not what makes you, right? I mean, yeah, you were a fighter, but there's other things that go along this life and what you need to do to be successful in it. And a lot of times it's more so of it's how you see yourself, right? How you can dictate exactly what you feel is important in your life and what your purpose is. And then from there, you can pivot and do the things that you've been called to do. And it may not be fighting anymore. It may be doing something totally different. But the goal is to take what you've learned as a professional, take what you learn as a successful pro, and put that into anything that you're doing or everything that you're doing afterwards. So whether that be being a parent, whether that be being a businessman, teaching, coaching, whatever. That was something that I was able to do. Take some things that I've learned as a pro, take some things that I've learned as a collegiate athlete, and put them into play as a coach, as a teacher, as a father, as a husband, and as a business owner. And it's been working out. So that's one thing. Is like everything that you do, remember, it's a learning process. And if you don't open your eyes and take advantage of that particular event, you'll never learn from either your past triumphs or your mistakes. And that's probably the saddest thing that you could ever do in life.
Which is the biggest challenge for you as an elite high performance coach? Being a coach to all those guys and those girls, or being a dad to a small kid who pushes every button and everything there is to push at every minute of the day. They challenge you in ways that athletes couldn't even imagine, don't they?
Yeah, definitely. Time is our precious commodity. This is something that I constantly struggle with on a day-to-day basis. The good thing is that I have a team around me that allows me to do what I need to do, and I don't have to micromanage. I can delegate appropriately. That also takes time for you to acquire that. It took me a while. For 10 years, I didn't have that. Now I have the abilities to do so, but time is definitely something that has been a big challenge. Scheduling and organizing my days to the T really is. I mean, like right now, at a given point that I have to pivot and do something different, it changes the entire path of the day, right? So, because every moment in the day counts. At the same time, you want to have a blueprint. And that's the same thing we do with scheduling for programming, right? If I have fighters that have fights at certain times, I need to make sure that I'm scheduling that appropriately, scheduling it for the trainings and all that other stuff. And if you don't have that, it's not going to work out too well.
And there exactly is the reason we could sum it up, Coach, why the likes of the old school coaches, as we call them, when we picture the likes of Mickey from Rocky and those lads who turn up with the fag hanging out of the mouth and the little apron jacket on, and then we have the modern day guy like yourself who has every minute of every day planned to a T, and never the twain shall meet, I think it's fair to say, isn't it? I'm going to wish you well, even though it's against one of our own Islanders here. It's what we can say is when the gate closes on Saturday night, and the best man will win, as he has done on the last couple of occasions. So I look forward to seeing you in the front row. We'll probably see you jumping about, and wish you all the best for the weekend. I genuinely hope you, the listener, enjoyed this as much as I enjoyed listening to it back a couple of times, enjoyed speaking with Phil, and can get something of some use from it, whether it be for your boxing career, for maybe a professional interest or whatever it is going forward. Not sure if it comes across or not, but that guy has a presence and it transfers through speak. He knows his stuff, and when you watch him, he's a big unit, he's an intimidating guy, but it's his knowledge, it's his ability to transfer that knowledge, and it's the level that he's operating at. I guess if you're anyway serious about what you do, you're going to be a little bit worried, and you're going to be inspired. And I can honestly say I've been inspired since. So, Coach, thanks for your time. Genuinely appreciate it. I understand the demands. We complain here about being busy, but when you listen to the end of that conversation, it's phenomenal. That's about it from me and them until then. Thank you for listening to this episode. All the links you need are below our link tree, where you'll get the YouTube page, you'll get all the other social medias and emails and everything else. Please feel free to share the episode, pass it on. Not only will you be helping me and the podcast, maybe somebody somewhere will get some sort of inspiration or give them a direction in their life. And as I said, this episode is coming out right now. You're not going to have to wait too long. Friday, you'll have the episode with the 11-time Irish national champion, the European gold medalist and newly signed professional fighter Willow Hayden. All that in the next episode. So stay safe, stay sane, smile. All's well that ends well.